Broadcasting from our station, spinning 3,900 feet above the watery sphere.
I can see for miles and miles. I can see for miles and miles. I can see for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles.
This is Monitor Duty.
Actually, you can't see for miles and miles because this week we're talking about a blind guy.
He can't, but we can. Welcome to Monitor Duty. It is Wednesday. We are here once again to talk about comics. Isn't that great? What a world.
Wait a minute. We're going to talk about comics?
I mean, we would if y'all had done your homework.
We get to talk about some comics.
Okay.
Not all the comics I had originally intended. So, yeah, that's the cards on the table. I had to fess up to everybody that I did not get the reading that I assigned finished. We were originally going to talk about the first 4 issues of Daredevil from 1964. And I only got 2 of them done. And I had 2 weeks. You know.
To be fair, these were long chapters, and they had a ton of dialogue.
There was a lot of that verbosity that was going on with them.
Like, there's a point at which a comic book becomes a novel that's trying to trick you into reading it.
I wouldn't say this is that per se.
It's like a graphic novel.
I think that one of the elements that's really, well, we'll talk about this more when you look at the individual stories, but one of the things that in the first 2 issues that I really liked was they were really stretching they're flexing on the premise, and Mr. Reese needs rest today. They were stretching out the premise, and so of a blind man who was a superhero, and so there's a lot of describing how his senses are working.
I actually want to talk about that in a lot more depth because I actually think this being a more text-heavy story actually works in his favor.
I would agree.
I'm not saying that like you have to go crazy with it all the time,
which it does at times.
But I will say that if you don't do this, all you do, you actually detract from the core pitch of what this character is.
Right. So let's go ahead, Twitless. Since we're talking about it, why don't you? We've mentioned it, but I want you to kind of tell me who the heck this Daredevil guy is, why we should care, and then we'll go ahead and start talking about the book.
Well, I'm really interested and curious to hear what Cartoonicus has to say because you and Reese and I were talking about this, and I said, you know what, I really think Cartoonicus would like Daredevil because he's essentially the most Batman-esque character that Marvel has. And not only is he the most Batman-esque character, I think that Daredevil actually is even better than Batman at some of the things that Cartoonicus particularly likes in his superhero fiction. Namely, Cartoonicus has a strong sense of retribution, I guess, and justice. And so I pegged, the first issue that we read, you have the murderer does not just, go free, doesn't get away. In fact, he gets a mortal comeuppance. And so there's that side of it. Also, you have a Daredevil being a strong man of faith. Which isn't shown as much here, but it's definitely something that the character definitely grows into. And so you have a Catholic Batman with a strong sense of retribution and so a very interesting power set that doesn't make him overpowered, but lets him have a very wide range of things he can and cannot do. I think Daredevil and Spider-Man are in a similar tier in terms of having a lot of narrative range, what you can do with them. They're both characters, for example, that can be menaced by a guy with a gun. You know, they can't just go, haha, bullets, bombs off me. They have to actively dodge it. So they can be threatened by gangsters. They can fight gangsters and that be believable. But because they have superpowers, they can also fight, you know, crazy supernatural people. So you have so much of a wide range of what you can do with these characters because not just of what their powers are, but what their limitations are. So, like I said, I was very, you know, our pitch of this was basically, hey, you like Batman? I think the best character in Marvel to, you know, or specifically, I know Cartoonicus likes Robin, but you know, the Bat family of characters. And so I was like, you know what? I think Daredevil's going to be the guy for you.
Well, and I have a quick question that I've never completely understood, right? So Daredevil starts. I always grew up with Daredevil in the red costume, and then for a brief period of time he had that black tactical costume, which I thought looked really cool. When I was 11, 12. And then I found out his original classic was this yellow costume, right? Which definitely has some
it's very short-lived though. I think it's like 7 issues.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but why?
It's short.
Well, you'll notice he's wearing the classic yellow, black, and red. But whereas like anybody else would be mostly wearing black and red with only hints of yellow, they actually inverted the equation here.
That's probably because my guess, this is just a guess. I do not know the exact history on this, but if you think about the fact that you already had Spider-Man being pure red, you probably initially wanted to establish that he has a different color palette before realizing actually red looks better on him. So
yeah. Well, and even the black it's only like kind of black. I mean, it's obviously that super dark leather look. And the one of the things about Daredevil's costume, especially this early one, is it's got that early 20th century, you know, gym rat look that, like, I didn't realize that that's what it was until I started watching 50s movies. A lot of 50s B and C movies have got they'll take place in a gym and there'll be an extortion racket or whatever, and everybody's dressed exactly like Daredevil.
And the irony is, in this very comic, when he's working out, he's just in a Speedo.
Yeah. He just got the real tiny running shorts, as that's it. Yeah. But yeah, that was really, really kind of crazy as far as costume design goes. But yeah, so Daredevil is so Cartoonicus, your impressions of the origin issue there of Daredevil. What did you think?
First of all, one name really stuck out to me, and I was not expecting that, and that was Wally Wood.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, of all the people to be doing a superhero comic, and I was thinking, like, wow, is this going to be safe to read?
We're talking about issue 2 then? Was Wally Wood issue 2?
No, it's issue 1.
No, it's Bill Everett.
What? Did I skip an issue? No, it was the origin.
The origin of Daredevil is Stan Lee, Bill Everett, and Sam Rosen. It's it's Namor basically, which is interesting because when I was going back over this, there's this. The more you read like Golden and Silver Age stuff, the more you can kind of like see like which artists kept their Golden Aginess to them, and so Everett's stories, like I said, there's you can see he's got the Golden Age still in there. And I would argue that, you know, the more I've read Jack Kirby, I think you could even argue that a little bit for him. But Kirby, I think, adapts over time.
Isaac Larkin, no one told him it was most yellow until issue 7.
I just said that.
Oh, I didn't. Well, I know that I didn't hear you say that it was like it was like, oh, Daredevil thought it was a red costume. He just was wrong.
Oh no.
So I'm not sure what the order is and how people jump around, but in the front credits here, it's saying pencilers Wallace Wood, and he comes first. And then
Wood doesn't do the first issue though. He might be
5 through 10. Well, that's weird because the artwork in that first issue totally stood out, and I could have sworn that was his artwork.
That's Everett. Like I said, it's kind of golden agey.
Oh yeah,
It's-
it's. I mean,
But
look at this panel
it's
here on
different. Like
page 2. This panel on the screen here on from the bottom of page 2.
it's
That
all
really
so.
Hello.
Hey, metal.
What made me think this was actually Welly's work was that, like his work, everything is so detailed and yet also so clean. Like not a single line goes to waste in this work. And every character has, their personality visually designed into their face. There's expression. Like, you don't see this very often in older comics like this.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I loved about this first issue was it felt okay. So it felt like reading a superhero book, but it also felt like reading Dick Tracy.
Sure, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It was playing in like the noir comic space and the true crime comic space.
Yeah. And that's why the second one felt so jarring.
It did a really good job of feeling.
Well, I do want to put out a couple of things. Things you see in the Golden Age are you see things like the hatching, and you see more of that in Golden Age, and you don't see what I would say like heavy inking, where you're really like heavily using the blacks, and it's a little more sketchy. Because if you compare like Golden Age to Silver Age Captain America, by the time you hit the Golden Age, it's like, oh, we know what we can do with ink now.
Right.
That does lead to a particular a kind of aesthetic, and there's probably pros and cons to both.
This does feel like it is of an older time period than it is, but mainly because it has this kind of Americana almost feel to it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
Well, we should briefly synopsize the basic plot gist here. Is
crazy. I never even got to Wood, and yet I was convinced that was.
You thought you did?
Yeah, that's so weird.
So the first issue of Daredevil introduces our a new spin on Marvel characters, which is to not just have these characters have emotional dysfunction, but physical dysfunction as well. And this is actually a pattern that Stan Lee puts in multiple characters. Doctors, well, we could argue about whether it's Ditko or Lee, but early Marvel, it's a pattern. You have a Doctor Strange with his busted hands. You've got, I think Thor Blake doesn't he have a limp?
He's a cripple.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
the original Thor. That's right.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
So
he's got a gimpy leg and
it's the cane. It's his
cane. He walks in the cane.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's interesting too, because I don't know. He might be one of the first, if not the first. I hate to call him magical girl, but that kind of like transformation scene. Let me turn into He-Man here.
That's Captain. Well, I mean, we have to go with Captain Marvel, right?
It's Captain Marvel.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Shazam.
The one thing about Captain Marvel's transformation is it is from boy to man, so that's kind of a different paradigm. The weakness of Billy Batson is also his strength, right? And so there's different stuff going on with Billy Batson's transformation.
But just that concept of literally transforming into a completely different thing in order to do your stuff.
Thor is definitely fits into the magical girl archetype, I would say, more than that.
I mean, to be fair, if you look at him, he did almost grow a foot when he transformed back in the original. Like he was physically bigger when he transformed into
yeah.
And he got long hair.
Back to Daredevil. What we have here, though, like I said, is Marvel was doing something different, and they were definitely wanting to do something different than DC did, which was as opposed to having the characters be paragons in their secret identities. There needed to be dysfunction and disability, I think. And here, the disability could not be stronger, which is literally a blind man, a man who is not just able, but literally disabled. He is less advantaged than normal people around him, in theory. But in practice, this flips around. He's actually even more. His disability makes him even more capable. This is all dressed up in a very Cinderella boxing story, essentially, I guess. A down and out boxer and his son. battling Murdoch. He's like, son, you're not gonna be a mug like me. You're gonna go do books, kid. And because I want a better life for you, and in order to to do that on the hard streets of New York, I'm going to just slum it up and just get my face punched in while I fund you to be a scholar. And that's the basic, kind of setup there. And then Battling Murdoch ends up getting in with a nasty crowd in order to make ends meet. Guy wants him to throw a fight. He doesn't, and that's what gets him killed. And that's what sets Daredevil on his quest to become Daredevil and become a superhero and right wrongs.
I could have been a contender.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about the way they took this origin story. You talked about there being a certain Americana to the feel of it, to the way that buildings are being used, the way clothing designs are being used. It's got this very mid-century, especially in this story.
Oh yeah, I mean,
but it's also got this gritty like origin, right? And it's pulling from Hollywood and the story of boxers. It's pulling from all of that tradition of
it's a really very New York.
So it's very New York, and it's breathing in the air, right? It's less than 10 years later that Simon and Garfunkel released The Boxer, but it could be Jack Murdoch's story, right? Because it's all in this, the soup of the mind. It's part of the American collective unconscious is Jack Murdoch's story, and that's such a great jumping off point for this guy who hopes for something better for his kid, right? And man, does it ever play with, because one of the things I love about this is like Jack says, listen, Matt, you need to make something of yourself. You can't be a bum like I was a bum, right? You got to be something. And Matt says, well, you're not a bum, Dad. You're great. I love you. You're amazing. And he just like, shut your mouth and go do your homework. Right?
I feel like this story is one of the more all of Marvel is flavored by New York, but this one feels like it could have been written. This one feels like it could have been written by Will Eisner, like one of those like tenement tales. Except Eisner would have had it be tragic. So Stan Lee's like,
his was.
I'm just saying, like,
it's less tragic. It's just differently tragic,
Let me put it this way: Eisner would have not had Matt become a superhero. It would have just been my dad's dead. Stan Lee has to write a story where this becomes a crowning moment. I'm serious. Like if
you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Okay.
My dad's dead. Now I'm blind.
Right. That and then like he curse the divine and gets struck by lightning or something. So like contract of God.
Well, and know why that is because Stan Lee writes origin stories. That's what this is all about. The dead parent is only used as a means to get the character to become a superhero.
Right, but it also shows something about what Stan Lee's.
Though. That's the fun thing is it's not just in his death; it's in his life, right? Like even like Matt's like Jack, he feels like he can't be nothing, but he pulls a George Foreman story in the second act, right? So it's just like
it is surprisingly detailed for a Stan Lee story.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like this feels it's the most Will Eisner of Stan Lee's origin stories, which it gives it a different flavor because you actually get kind of invested in Battling Murdoch's story arc. So when he refuses to throw the fight, and he's like, I want my son. He doesn't just. The story is well constructed enough, so it's not just this is a cheap ploy to get him to die so that the superhero origin can happen. In a way, I love Spider-Man. I'm not knocking Spider-Man, but because this comes after Spider-Man, obviously Stan Lee's got a little more practice under his belt, and so I feel like the origin story here is a little bit better than Uncle Ben's, because Uncle Ben just kind of dies, whereas Balan Murdoch has like a story arc. He goes through this arc of he's willing to do anything to support his son, but then when he sees his son in the crowd, he's like, his pride. He's like, I'm proud of my boy. I want my boy to be proud of me. I'm not throwing this fight. I'm gonna win it. And he does, and you get this feeling of like I remember going like, yeah, you get it, you know, even though I know what's gonna happen, but I still was along for the ride. It's solid.
Yeah, he goes up.
Is because it's such a complex origin story. He has to do 4 different things to get him to be Daredevil. Number 1, he's got to give him powers. Number 2, he's got to get him to be physically strong. Number 3, he's got to get him to be studious and brilliant. And then on top of all of that, then he's got to have this, Uncle Ben like lesson beat into him with the dead relative. It takes a long time to get through even just the first half of this. They do not skimp it. It was just like, hey, I ran into radiation, and then 5 minutes later, my uncle died.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing about it too is they're all interwoven, right? Like exactly. Matt's body, like his body training we have on this panel here, right? He's doing this all in secret, and he's doing the full Renaissance man bit, right?
And in order to do all this,
but it's because of the idolization, because of the respect he has for his dad.
Exactly.
Right. And so his dad gets in with the mob, and at first, right, he doesn't. He's all of a sudden he's going through and he's winning fights, and he thought he was just there to be a punching bag to make younger boxers look good, and he's willing to take it for his kid, right? But then he's winning, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm having my second win!" That's that's great. And then he finds out it's all been set up, right? So when the fixer comes to him and says, "You got to take a dive. I've been covering for you, and now it's time." It's not just like, I want my kid to be proud of me. It's also like you say you've been, but I know what I got. I know what I have. And he goes out with he believes in himself, and he goes out with his boots on, right? And that's one of those things where it's just like, I'm ready to rip my shirt off and start waving the American flag around.
So narratively, what's neat about that is, like I said, the sacrificial lamb, which is, again, it's a trope and it's fine, but they're able to weave, Lee and Everett are able to weave it in such a way that you get kind of invested in it. It's not just, Uncle Ben was great and he died. It's like he's a character, and we get to see him have basically a full character arc before he dies, which makes, I think, his death I think you feel it pretty well. And like I said, it's infused with a sort of a New York story that I'm sure has happened hundreds of times. So it gives I think an added layer of authenticity to Daredevil's origin.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, it's a great starting point because this is also the origin story for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So that's pretty special.
Wait, what?
The truck that tips over with radioactive goo.
Yeah, this scene was used by Eastman and Laird in the origin story for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Not surprising, since
it's officially, unofficially supposed to be the same truck.
Yeah,
so
that's funny.
Yeah, just like they have all these change things, instead of the hand, it's the foot.
Right.
It's like everything's the same.
Yep. It's Daredevil. But I don't know if there's ever been a Daredevil Ninja Turtles crossover. They've done a couple of Batman crossovers. One of them I have is not bad, but
that's funny.
Anyway, on we go. So Matt Murdock, of course,
he's wearing green here.
Yes.
Green and orange.
Oh my gosh.
They're trying to highlight his red hair because it's wasn't that common to have a red-haired hero back then.
I will. You know what? What's interesting here is they actually do you don't actually see on panel him getting like doused in the eyes. It kind of happens off panel. Yeah, it's like, oh look, it's in his face. So that's tastefully done.
Is it something radioactive? as a person would say in a normal conversation.
Well, that was the thing, right? Like in this first panel, I'm thinking, like, is it just because he was around radiation? Don't they have to worry then? And then it's not until you get to the lower panel that we see his eyes covered over. Like,
the policeman. The policeman narrates it. It's one of those things where I don't know what Everett and Lee were doing, because again, the Marvel method of Lee was I'm going to just put the words in after you draw stuff, and so I don't know if there was a missing panel here. Because Lee just draws or Lee just writes a narration, and the policeman just says what happened. This is not super typical to just be like, hey, there was a missing panel here. I'm just going to narrate what happened. But a cylinder fell from the truck. It struck his face. It was just like, oh yeah, we didn't see that.
So
getting back to the art here and how it ties into the characters, every single character has a face to match their personality. So well, and every time I look at his dad, I see Gene Con, and every time I look at young Matt, I see Tony Dow.
I don't know who those people are, but
I will say that from the first from the first story I've seen Everett do, which was Namor, he was good at doing like expressions. Like the first shot of Namor's face is very well communicates that he is a villainous character, but also like not super evil. He's just kind of sinister. So I think, Everett knows how to work the faces.
Anyway, Tony Dow is Wally from Leave It to Beaver.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably accurate.
Can we
also, for James Caan, have you ever seen Elf?
I said Gene Con.
There you go.
Yeah, because he was the dad in Elf. I mean, among.
Well, yeah, I know James Caan is. I thought Cartoonica said Gene Con.
Did I? I didn't mean to.
No, I heard James. Maybe you were mishearing.
Maybe I was mishearing. Could be. Well, I don't know who Gene Con is, but I know James Caan. Okay, I get it. That makes sense. Yeah. So you said Cartoonica. I mean, Twitless. You said you wanted to stop and check something out.
Actually, we go ahead a little further. What I think is interesting is if we want to jump to like the first like.
Actually, I do want to focus on that last part of the previous page here. But this was unexpected to me. I did not realize that they had actually specifically focused on all his other senses. I only knew Daredevil to have the radar. So this was like, whoa, they're really going out of their way here to give everything.
Yep.
I can tell how many grains of salt there are on a pretzel.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got to thinking like this would be like, so this is something I'm going to talk about it anyway. It's not a huge secret. I don't make a big deal about it, but as somebody who has grew up with the whole ADHD diagnosis, one of the things about that is that it's an executive function disorder. So your brain doesn't sort information correctly. So when I was a kid, now this doesn't happen to me much anymore, but when I was a kid, my brain wouldn't filter out sensation. Right. So I would hear or see or smell or taste things like way more than my brain could handle it. And I would have moments where I just would be overwhelmed with my senses. Right. And that was distracting and irritating. So you talk about Daredevil having, superhuman senses where he's tasting the number of salt crystals on a pretzel. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, that's maddening.
I imagine he can't eat Italian.
And actually there are people that they're super tasters who have super acute sense of smell and taste that they end up getting jobs as for fragrance companies or for food manufacturers because their senses are so attuned that they have a special capacity within those realms. But there is something about this that it's cool, but also horrifying.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't seen the movie, it starts out with him having to sleep in like this, basically a coffin filled with water, because it's the only way that he can get any peace. Otherwise, he's hearing everything all the time.
It's a sensory deprivation tank.
Yeah. That's when we started sleeping in a soundproof waterbed. Actually, no, I actually would have a noisemaker in my room, so I couldn't hear crickets or birds outside my window.
Oh yeah, I used to have a fan right next to my head. It was the only way I could get to sleep.
It was just so I could dull things. But yeah, if you've ever had the sheets on your bed irritate you so that you couldn't go to sleep, it makes for a real bad night, especially if it's cold. Sorry. Yeah, it doesn't happen anymore. Something about getting older and tireder made a difference for me.
So for me, this was like, this is funny that how extreme they're going to this, and for you, it's just like, look, PTSD.
Not quite. It was an unpleasant memory from my past, but like it's like that. It's like not knowing how to tie your shoes or something like that, I guess. But anyway, in the context and how they use this power, these abilities in the book are so much fun, because you'll have this great like noir-y internal monologue that Daredevil has throughout these books. And so he'll talk about, okay, I can hear this over here and I can smell, diesel fumes. And so I know there's a semi or something ahead of me. And the sound of the car horns are telling me, how tall the thing is. And so as he's maneuvering around the city, he talks about the things that he's perceiving and how those help him to navigate or to know where things are around him. Like in the second issue, I'm sure we'll talk about it, he goes up against Electro, which I thought was kind of fun, because Electro is kind of a cool character, and he's in Spider-Man, and so he's already in New York City, so it made sense. But he talks about being able to like feel the static electricity that he's leaving behind him, right? So he's tracking him through downtown New York because he can feel, just like when you run your hand next to a balloon, you can feel the pull of the static on it. It's the same thing. And I'm just like, oh, okay, that's really kind of cool. I believe that this works, right?
If you want to jump to page 16, we can see a couple of instances of this in action that I'd love to point out.
Okay, before we do that, I do want to do the scene here. Here it is with the fight. He's Battling Jack is supposed to go ahead and take the dive, and he's just like, my boys are here tonight, rooting for his dad. I can't disappoint him now. So he's refusing to take the dive for pride. Reminded of that scene from friggin' Pulp Fiction. Anyway, so 16. Ooh, hey, the costume.
Yeah, so the bottom of page 16.
Yeah, that was crazy. He sews his own costume because he can tell what the colors are by feeling them.
Right there. Right, yeah, these panels right here. Scroll it. Yeah, just maybe scroll in a little bit. Okay. So this is what Reese was talking about, which is this is why I'm okay with Daredevil having more text in it, and I'll explain why. So here we have, at first glance, you're just seeing a superhero bat a gun out of a gangster's hand. Dick Tracy could do that. Spider-Man can do that. Batman can do that. So at first glance, this is something that you've seen before. And if you just watch a superhero character just dominate gangsters, eventually it's just, like I said, it's just going to be flavors of the same thing. It's in the text here, specifically in the thought balloons, where the gangster, says, "Hey, how'd you know I was behind you? That's my secret, pal. No matter how softly he crept up behind me, his muffled footsteps sounded like heavy drum beats to me." So not only is it just like explaining what happened, it's giving us a flavor. It's giving us a visual image a visual sound image that has to play to the senses, more than one sense, by the way, as we see with Daredevil, because Daredevil has multiple senses he can play with. He can play with, I think, 4 of them, essentially. Plus that
yeah, and
radar
a lot
sense.
of this would be really hard to depict, especially with the limited page space that you have too.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that without us getting that, even if it's a little verbose, without getting that verbal, explanation, as it were, without getting that detail, it would just be, oh, here's another superhero doing a superhero thing. And it would really remove the fact that he's compensating for his disability, which is one of the main points of Daredevil. If he can just operate like a sighted person, and then we don't even get to see from an interior perspective what that looks like, it's just he might as well just have sight. You know what I mean? You might as well just completely ignore what we're doing here. But the fact that he's kind of narrating in this interior monologue, or even sometimes out loud, he's basically saying which sense he's using. This is honestly, this is, to me, as I was reading this. It's been a while. I'm trying to remember if I've read how much of this I've read before, but like it's this, to me, this is the heart of Daredevil, especially these early stories. The fact that you can use multiple senses to allow me to mentally participate in a superhero fantasy in a way I would not do so normally. Where I'm thinking about which senses he's going to use. In some cases, like I said, he's feeling the static electricity because he's much more sensible to touch. In some cases, he's smelling fumes. And it's so fascinating that we're getting these levels of detail, and it's not just portrayed as, because like in the Netflix series, there were moments where you get to see through Matt Murdock's sightless eyes, and it would just be like the world on fire, and it was like he could like see like within the Matrix essentially, and that's fine, I guess. But I love the fact that he's using all these different senses, and
it's not just a 3D map of the world.
Right. Yeah, you're getting he's using, again, and we're getting through the writing, and we have to read that, but and that's why it needs to be longer. Because, like I said, if you remove this text, he's just a superhero doing superhero things, just like everyone else, except kind of a little bit lamer because he doesn't have Spider-Man's powers. The fact that he does it this way makes him just as interesting as Spider-Man, and I would argue, in a couple of ways, even more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially if you play into that like more pulp noir detective like stuff, where he's using it to like solve. Not just a fight, but like where something is, how something happened.
Solve a case, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and I also love the idea. One of the things I love about this page, and I'm going to go back over this specifically, right? The sound of a suit jacket being drawn aside, fingers touching a metal object, right? Now, this is an engaging thought because you're sitting here as a reader, and you're like, okay, it does sound so one way to pick up cloth. If you listen close, you can hear what cloth you can hear what cloth sounds like when you pick it up. That's one. Your hand touching cloth makes one noise, right? But your hand touching metal does feel different to your hands. And so it makes sense that it would sound different too, right? And so you're sitting here imagining, at least I was imagining, holding it next to my ear, like, and what does that sound like, right? And kind of picking that up in it. And so you have this, and he has, the sound of breathing and the click of the safety. No, he's right exactly where this dude is, right? Pick up the proximity of his mouth and his lungs and his gun, and you have that. And then so he uses the billy club, knocks it out of his hand, throws it, it bounces back, and the almost inaudible sound of my cane cutting through the air is like a loud radar beep to my sensitive ears. So the idea that this object has its own sound profile also can be picked up that way. And is it right on the edge of believability? Maybe, but it's also like tactile enough, right? And aural enough that at least I was imagining each of those sounds just like you're reading a novel and you hear, as the novelist is talking about the things they're hearing, and participating in it in the same way. And so that was one of those things that you taught that. And let me get your thoughts on this, Twitless.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that my favorite academic, Scott McCloud, talks about is the use of gutter spaces that allow your brain to fill in details, right? In some ways, I think that instead of action happening in the gutter spaces, in the spaces between images, we actually do have those other sensory information being plugged in because it's participating in the visual graphic storytelling, and because it's so dialogue heavy, we've got literary readings going on as well. So I think you've got both that action language and the written language playing together in ways that you don't necessarily get in other wordy comics that aren't using that kind of description.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting conceit, and it really is. I think it's actually, there are scholars who criticize this style of writing, because what they'll say, for example, like Fletcher Hanks did this a lot, for example, but where the text is merely restating what your eyes are seeing. And that's often depicted as a weakness that the genre outgrew. The point that I think is interesting here, as opposed to it being just a weakness that you should outgrow, here it's a strength. But it's a strength because of how this character is set up. Right. Because it's set up to be like a blind man who is compensating, but because he has these other senses, he can super compensate. But it's only interesting if you can read how he's doing that. That's what allows this to, I think, work.
And that's the thing, because I'm one of those. I do not like over amounts of narration or thought bubbles and whatnot. But as Reese was just saying, the artwork is done so well here that it makes it work. I did not feel that was the case in the next two issues.
I think in issue 2 it has a lot of that kind of stuff, and I didn't get to issue 3, but
issue 3 is just a bit weaker because the villain's kind of dumb. But sorry for fans of the Owl.
You know what? I don't know if there's a
the Owl is dumb.
More in
the Owl is kind of dumb.
Comics than Electro, so Owl didn't have an effect on me.
Yeah, well, and I will say that, like, and it's one of the things I think you really hit on, and I just want to reiterate, is the idea that so much of the dialogue of not the dialogue per se, and there definitely is some repetition of things where it's explaining what we're seeing, but much of the explaining, especially in Daredevil's internal monologue, are things we can't see, right? And so, and that's really what I meant by invoking the gutter space, because there are, smells don't make their way onto the comic book page.
Right.
Right.
Apologies to Mort Walker. For the most part, smells don't make their way in.
No, I'll expand on that. They don't, because you can imply that something has a smell, but you can't tell what that is until someone describes it.
Yep.
You could even maybe imply that it stinks, but you wouldn't know what that stink is like until he says.
You could. Right. If you're willing to be a little unrealistic with it, you could draw the fumes in the shape of the thing that it smells like.
Sure, but apart from some very clever experimental things, most of the time it's just like, even then, right? It's only when you get that text of like, that is the pungency of a 7-day-old fish.
Yeah.
Like, I could draw the stinky fish, but like, you know what I mean? When I say week-old,
I think it gets harder when you get to the sense of touch. Like, I think that's the one where it lays on even more. Because you could see the thing he's touching, but that one is like, if there's something weird or unique about it, you can't pick up on that just visually. That one, even more than anything else, needs to be described. I don't even know if you could use creative illustrations to really depict a weird touch.
Right. There's even outside of some exceptions, I think it's the text is what allows you to flesh even with sound. He's like that; those sound like heavy drum beats to me. Right. So that's what makes it fun to read, because you're not just getting the practicality of like, oh, he heard something. Matt is telling you how how he's hearing and smelling the world. And so when he says it's like a drum beat in my ears, it's like a heavy, that's like trash cans getting hit with a an iron rod. It's like you're getting these added sensory flavors. And it's like, and I'm reading this book and I'm like, I am digging how they're doing this, and this makes this character much more interesting to read than just blind guy who does superpower thing.
And here's the thing, and this is one of the reasons for it being working as a thought bubble as opposed to a word bubble. Mm-hmm. What I think works better in this issue than in the next one is that every time you see one of those thought bubbles, it seems like he is discovering something in the moment. Right, he's not just explaining how his powers work to you; he's reacting to something as he is experiencing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable way of reading it, and also why I am so pro thought bubble, right? Because when you have the caption box, that whether the narrator is omniscient or whether it's just the internal monologue of the character, it has that distance. Yes. Like, even if it's written in present tense, it still feels like it's happening outside of the action. And you don't get that from a thought balloon. The thought balloon is in the moment in the same way a dialogue balloon is.
Marmaduke fan drew my attention to that specifically. And it was a very astute point, which is that when you put the caption on top, you're putting something on top of the story. But when you have dialogue and thought balloons, that's happening diegetically on the level of the story, because no one can see the caption boxes, but it's understood that the word balloons, even though people can't see them, those are happening in real time. They're happening in the story, and so are the thought balloons. They're happening what we call diegetically on the level of the story. The caption boxes are happening as a layer on top of that.
Yep.
And so there is a small, maybe some people would argue almost imperceptible level of distance, but it's there. It's maybe subtle, but it's there.
Yeah, and I mean, and back in the 90s when they were using both, before the full transition to every internal monologue as captions, you would have writers, artists who would use those caption boxes intentionally as space. So you could have a character narrating their own story and still have their instant in the moment thoughts, as well as have their, you're like, okay, a great example of this sort of thing in other media. You guys are you familiar with Magnum PI?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So in Magnum PI, Magnum will say things that are in the moment, but he also narrates the show. And all of that's the narratives or things that are like, man, you're never going to believe what happened to me yesterday kind of things. I should have seen this as a sign kind of stuff. But if he's thinking about something in the moment, he either has someone to talk to or he just talks to the aloud to himself. And you have that in the moment narrative, and you have this overarching narrative. And so that's that trope, which was, like I said,
wait a minute, nuns don't work on Sunday.
What?
That was one of those moments like, wait a minute, nuns don't work on Sunday.
What movie was that? That was
the Magnum PI. He was like chasing a person, and he disguised as a nun real quick, and like climbs up a ladder and starts painting the side of the schoolhouse or whatever. And then he shoots the nun because nuns don't work on Sunday.
Sad Robot says, in light of the possible GPU shortage, they should make a VR Daredevil game. You know what's funny? You laugh about that. There actually is a video game. It's an indie game, I believe, and it is you play through the eyes of a blind person, and so the entire screen is black, and when you tap your cane, it sends out sonar waves, and you very briefly get to see an outline of your surroundings. The whole game is played that way. I don't remember the title of it. I'll see if I can look it up, but that's actually a thing that has been done.
Isaac says this is fun. He says it would be cool if he had photographic memory because he could link different memories to smells. That is, in fact, how things work, but it would be fun to talk about that.
I don't think it would be photographic, though.
Yeah.
Game is called
Not
Perception,
for Daredevil,
by
at
the
least.
way.
Yeah,
memory
yeah.
in a sense per se.
It wouldn't be photographic like we think of photographic memory, but I took it from the statement when people talk about photographic memory, they mean perfect recall.
Yeah, or what people call a eidetic memory.
Yeah, yeah. And I would believe that you could probably have a perfect recall character who's only recalling, other sensory information. Like, this is the smell, and I always remember this smell because, once you've smelled really stinky weed, you never not remember what it smells like. I'm looking at you, Washington, D.C. Disgusting.
Do we have anything else we want to say about issue 1 before we move on?
Yeah, nurse.
Eidetic smell memory, the truffler. Isaac asks, we talk about Stick. No, because he doesn't show up in these books yet.
So, Nurse Eyebrows here. If you want to scroll down a little.
Well, I wanted to also point out that one thing I found really, I don't know what I think about this. Foggy Nelson's going upstairs to the office, but entering the office, Foggy finds it unoccupied, except for the most decorative accessory. He's talking about Karen Page. It's like, well, that seems like a weird thing to say. There's Stan. I don't know what I think about that. But what do you guys think about Karen in these stories?
Scroll down a little. My gosh, these eyebrows. This is the one place where the art confuses me. I'm like, is she supposed to be evil? What is going on here?
That's just how women used to define their eyebrows,
She looks like she's angry all the time.
Maybe she dyes her hair. Maybe she's.
And I'm looking at her and thinking, oh yeah, yep, she looks like she's going to grow up to be a Karen.
So the thing about old Marvel is that you can tell the most, I think, about what era you're in by how the women, like the women's fashion, like the men, it's like, like you look at Foggy there and it's like, this is 1964, but that fashion is still like, you could still wear that today. Yeah. But you look at the women's hairstyles, like you look at Sue Storm, it's like, when Sue Storm is in 1960 and when she's in 1980 or 90s. Right. So you're seeing, this is the time capsule part, where it's like, she's got this 60s do. So as a character though, she's fine, I guess. I'm trying to think. It's like she's in a similar class as Pepper Potts, basically, and which is the secretary who gets into the love triangle. Right. As opposed to Happy Hogan, we've got Foggy. It's a very similar setup.
That's true. I had not really thought about that, but yeah, that's exactly right on.
I think. I don't know. I guess I would lean towards Pepper, but I've read more Iron Man. Mm-hmm. Karen's fine.
Well, she's got this unusual detail going on where she's almost head over heels in love with him, except she can't stand the idea that she would be simply because he's blind, right? So there's almost kind of a bit of a villainous quality to her. What I thought was funny was because in a second, spoiler alert, everybody, they're going to bring in the Thing, and I immediately thought about, I can't remember her name, but the Thing's girlfriend, who's blind, right?
Yep, Alicia
Masters.
I was like, oh my gosh, that seems like a missed opportunity there. If I remember correctly, Karen is going to end up getting fridged, is she not?
Sort of, but after 30 years.
Yeah.
Before that, she takes off to go to be a big time Hollywood actress, and
doesn't Miller get rid of her because he's like, I think this ninja chick I made up is hot?
I think it happened sooner than that. I think
original Gwen Stacy, basically. Right?
I believe that Karen left the book before Miller was involved. I think she left. I don't remember exactly when it was, but I think it was sooner on than that. And then you have the ninja chick. Elektra has the whole thing, and then she's dead and whatever else. And then Miller brings her back in Born Again, but only after that her trip to Hollywood ended horribly with heroin and porn, and Mexico.
I know she gets. I know she gets put through the ringer.
Yeah.
Right.
Which
And
makes
so knowing that, it's
part of
unfortunate to
Born
be
Again
reading
is-
this and already know how it ends and be like, every time you see her, it's like, oh dear.
Well, it doesn't end for her. She does not get completely fridged. Unlike
No.
Gwen Stacy, who's like dead, and
Well, I think
canonically
she
dead.
does though. I think I believe that Karen after the Born Again period in the 80s and in the 90s, I think that when Matt fakes his death and goes with a black suit, that Karen ends up going off to California again to be an anti-porn activist, and then is hunted down and killed. I think by Kevin Smith.
Okay.
In the Guardian Devil arc.
She was killed by Bullseye.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
In like
but it was
99.
part of the Guardian Devil story, wasn't it?
Maybe was that in? It was in volume 2 of the Daredevil run at that time in like 99.
Yeah, it's the Marvel Knights Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
anyway, but that happens. I mean, I hesitate to call it fridging. I mean, it is kind of in that, but it's also that she'd been such a long running character that was killed off, so it wasn't quite the same vibe as like a new character that gets killed for the sake of drama.
And I think if I recall, it's been a long time since I've looked at that. Everything kind of like flowed logically. It's not like it was ham-fisted for some type of motivation or anything. It's just like wrong place, wrong time sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm remembering more, and I think it's really more about the whole, drug road and like the awful road she ends up going down that I'm thinking of. It's like, wow, look what you did with this character.
Yeah, that does seem really rough. The only thing I have to say about it is that in Born Again, which of course we didn't read today, but in Born Again, there's like a pair of redemption arcs that intersect between Matt and Karen, and it's kind of nice. But it's also the last part of that story is just weird. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to do a read through of that one because I have things to say about it. Sad Robot says no. Kevin Smith entered the comic himself and killed her.
All right, well, let's jump to the end of this comic.
Well, that's not cool, guys. Come on.
Yeah, like Matt turns to him, feels the wind blowing around, and says, "Wow, Bullseye, you put on quite a lot of weight."
Okay, so we'll go back to issue 1.
Yeah, to address something Twitless said at the end or at the beginning here. If we do want to jump to the end, is there anything else you need to discuss first?
Well, I do want to say that they in costume, Daredevil tries to hunt down the Fixer, and he gets away, and so he uses the smell of his particular cigar to track him. And I just think that's great.
Yeah, because like Spider-Man had like spider tracers and such, and other characters have their ways of doing it. But Daredevil's way of doing it is very, it's so unique and interesting, and it makes me interested in reading him narrate how he's going to find how he's going to do these things. And so it's a very interesting. I'm not saying it's like it's a different flavor. You know what I mean? You can like steak. You can like steak. You can like cheesecake. They're both different things. One of them's for dessert. One of them's for the main course. What I'm saying is that what's cool about superhero books is the fact that they don't all have to, or they don't all have the same flavor. And this is a unique flavor of superhero story, and that makes it stand out, makes it good.
Yeah, you might get a story where it's like, Daredevil, how did you find me? Well, it appears you're the only person in all of New York City that wears that atrocious cologne.
Interestingly enough, in these last few pages, is it possible someone came along and touched this up later, or did they in fact have more capable color printing than I thought? Because they've gone out of their way to make this subway area darker.
Mm-hmm.
And they've actually altered the colors in order to do so.
In this version, It's been recolored for digital.
It has, okay.
Yes.
Right.
So I don't know. The original link I shared out, I think, may have images of a different coloring job, but this one I know has been. So.
Okay. All right. So to address your point, Twitless, yes, I am glad that a murder gets brought to justice.
Fixer dies of a heart attack.
The problem is they got the wrong guy.
What are you talking about?
He wasn't the one who pulled the trigger. The other guy lives. I want the guy who actually took a life to get his life.
He's the responsible one. He gave the order.
No,
One
of these guys
culpable.
was willing to kill another human being. The other was not.
They both were.
A life for a life.
No, they were all willing to kill another human being.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know if I follow that logic.
They practically build him up even as the villain with his whole thought process about like, he mustn't know that I was the one who did it, and that's just very frustrating.
Well, the thing I love about this scene right here. Now for my last bluff, right? And you have Matt putting on his lawyer pants.
Mm-hmm.
We got you dead to right. The fixer told us everything. He bad cops him into confessing. He's as guilty as I am.
Which you could do
pulled the trigger.
Which you could do as a defense attorney. You're not, I think, supposed to do that as a prosecutor.
Well, yeah.
As an officer of the court, you're not supposed to actually. Police are allowed to lie. Officers of the court, not as so much.
Well,
especially
police are allowed to lie in certain contexts, and defense attorneys are not supposed to lie overtly. You're allowed to make inferences about things. You're not supposed to lie overtly. But it's still the same kind of head game. And he's also not an officer of the court. He's just some vigilante. So let's not forget that. But
well, Matt is. That was my I'm splitting hairs.
Yeah. If Matt ever got found out to be Daredevil, that could be really bad for him, because if he's still around lying a lot, you can still be responsible to the bar for that. Is Daredevil bull writing a confession out of him?
As long as he's not bull writing the confessional, I think we're fine.
One thing we didn't bring up actually is also his ability to tell when someone's lying.
Yes, that did not get brought up in this comic.
Wasn't this one? Oh, am I crazy?
So,
though, it's something that logically stems from things that were brought up in this one. Like if you can hear somebody's heartbeat, and you would definitely be able to kind of infer when they're lying.
Yes. So, really quickly, I don't want to spend the whole time talking about the plot on it, but I do want to hit a couple of highlights from this second issue. Specifically, the difference in art style. Joe Orlando comes in to do art here, and it is definitely different.
Yeah, and I don't like it as much, but again, I notice a very specific name right off the bat. Vince Coletta. Yes, I'm like, there he is.
And I got to step out here. Like the thing about a lot of people bag on Vince Coletta.
I just think he's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It is fascinating. But the one of the important things to note is that I really feel that Coletta saved Kirby, because Kirby's renderings were often more complex than could be rendered with the print processes of the time.
I think so.
And Coletta's simplified them to the point where they were iconic and reproducible. And I think that's something that he gets a lot of, doesn't get a lot of credit for. But, which I don't know if you agree with me on that or at all, Twitless, but that's my take on it.
You know what? I'm not seen enough of it. I'd have to I've not made a study. I know. I I'd actually forgotten that Coletta was the one who was like, is that was it the video? It was like this inker ruined Kirby or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Guys like Marv Wolfman and Mark Evanier have been saying since the 70s that since before they went pro, when they're both just fans, that Coletta was single-handedly ruined Kirby's legacy. Just like, okay.
I've never heard it put that way. The things you'll note about him is that he used, and I'm wondering if he had gotten to that point in this comic, because I'm not noticing it so easily. He used markers instead of pens, because that way it was easy for him to get that ink, onto the paper very quickly. Because this is everything he was doing was all about just speeding up the process.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll also use large amounts of black silhouette to keep from having to draw, lots of little details.
So, also, I love the comedic timing of this gag right here. Oh my goodness, that's great.
Right.
Absolutely great. So in this one, I don't know why, but the Daredevil is busting up a chop shop, and it is being run by Electro, which I was unaware that he was involved in that.
I've never seen Electro as like this mob boss before.
What?
He's been a thug. His first appearance in Spider-Man. He's a thug. A lot of Spider-Man villains were thugs. It just they were in it they were greedy, and so it's not really a big stretch that since he's powerful he'd get a few guys working for him to be more of a thug.
Well, it's kind of the thing to see in older comics, I think, is these villains where it's like you've got this mafia and all the mooks are just normal old people, but then you get to their boss and it's like, hello, I'm a supervillain.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, the Batman the animated series. I mean, not the 66 has that same kind of vibe to it.
Except none of them had any powers. In this case, it's beyond that, right? It's actually like I'm a super genius, evil genius anyway, but also I can do this, that, and the other thing, right? And it's like
Electro's not a genius. He's
just, you're right. He's an idiot.
He's I don't know if he's an idiot. He's just
but they do try to portray him, at least in this comic, as that kind of like, I've got this operation running.
Yeah, I think they do a pretty good job of selling him as sort of mid tier.
This is clearly, I'm assuming anyway, it must be before he had his whole tragic backstory and became, a brooding, whiny little crybaby who has nothing to complain about all the time.
Are you talking about, because like the version you're thinking of may be like the cinematic version? He's like always been
I don't know. Every version I've ever. No. Even in comics.
No, he's
he
a
blames
thug.
everybody for all his problems all the time.
I don't doubt that he blames other people for his problems, but in the Electro stories I've read, his problems pretty much involve being caught by Spider-Man. So
I'm not. Yeah.
Yes, that's often it. Actually, it's like
it's not uncommon for thugs to blame society and everyone else for their problems.
Yeah, it doesn't make it any less annoying when
he's actually he's a pretty. What's interesting about Electro is that he is of a power tier that is very threatening. His first encounter with Spider-Man is a one-hit KO. He's that strong. So he's not someone you can underestimate, and he's not a brainless moron, where sometimes they portray like Rhino or someone as. He's actually
slinging lightning around.
Right, yeah. He's not like a genius, but he's smart enough to break into the Baxter building. Like that's not like an easy thing to do. So he's kind of like sort of like I say mid tier, but that actually puts him in a pretty powerful category, and that actually makes him very threatening to face Daredevil, who does not have Spider-Man's endurance, who does not have Spider-Man's powers. So it's actually it's actually a good amp up for the tension. I like the story more than him fighting the Owl. The Owl is just like the Owl is one of those things where like Stan Lee was throwing darts at a dartboard and Jello at a wall to see what sticks, and he did this with Iron Man. Like Iron Man fights the Melter. and the unicorn and a bunch of people who no one ever remembers because they're just like ridiculous and forgettable.
Well,
And they
that's
all
like
darts at the
superpowers
board and hit
effect,
Jack
right?
instead.
yeah. So like Electro is fine. I'm okay with that.
Okay, we got a question from the chat talking about it. Is what's the best Electro depiction or design? Classic Max Dillon from the comics is the best design. I really dislike
the Ultimate
movie version. I don't even remember the Ultimate version.
But the movie was pretty close to Ultimate.
Yeah, that's just another boring blue guy. I'm tired of that.
All I know is I really don't like his mask here.
Oh, that's great. Maybe you don't like comics. I don't know.
I'm gonna give.
I don't like superheroes.
The Spider-Man animated series, kind of like it's basically the same design, but it's touched up a bit for the animated series. I like the way it's drawn in that one.
Which one? The 90s animated?
The
or
90s, yeah.
Okay. I will give this one thing to Cartoonicus. The only thing I struggle with a little bit with Electro, again, I love classic supervillains. Again, this guy he's strong enough that he can wear whatever he wants. He's Electro. He's pretty tough. But
he's just like a clown if you wanted.
The starfish on his face is hard to. It's one of those designs. It's like kind of like with Doctor Doom, right? Where it's like, I think certain artists can sell it and make it look good, but some artists can't draw Doctor Doom without making it look like he's wearing a skirt. And and some people can't draw Electro without making that thing on his face look dumb. So it actually takes, and this is something that's interesting to talk about with superheroes, is that some artists can really make the design sing, and you believe it, and you don't think it's silly. And then other artists can be very talented, but then they just can't sell the design that they're supposed to sell, and so they actually draw attention to how that it looks silly. And Electro is one of those challenging designs. Yeah. Dr. Octopus is not very challenging. As long as you could draw metal rods, you make him look fine.
Any outfit that Doc Ock wears is the Doc Ock costume. So
right. But it's really easy to sell him just because you just put the 4 metal arms on him. Very easy to draw. You could sell him no matter what. Electro Electro is a challenge because it's specifically with what he's got on his face, because it can look clownish if it's not drawn in a way that, like I said, really sells it.
I can't say that you're wrong, but I also love that about it. It's sort of like the idea that he's super powerful and he can wear whatever he wants, and even if it looks doofy, he still will kill you dead, right? Mm-hmm. It's sort of like the balls on that guy, right? Is part of the thing I like about it. So even if you're like, well, he looks kind of dumb. Yeah, he's Electro, and he'll kill you.
And now you're going to get embarrassed because you were killed by the guy who looked dumb.
Right, exactly.
But I prefer it when it doesn't look dumb because someone knows how to draw it well.
Yeah. No, yeah. Well, that's why I like the 90s one, right? I can tell you the two things about the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, which is functionally the same design, but the slight changes to why I like it more. The original design almost had these weird lightning sideburns going down. And the 90s one kind of took the way the old Spectacular Spider-Man was more just like a star, but drew it better. And also, instead of the lightning on his top kind of becoming like a V going down to his britches or whatever, they made it look a little bit more like suspenders, and I think it frames his body better. So that's why I think it is the superior version of the original design.
I can give you that. So, anyways, the premise of the story is that the Thing has come to Nelson and Murdoch, attorneys at law, because they want to make sure that the Baxter Building is going to meet the criteria for a new lease contract. That they have to get a new lease for reasons that aren't explained, and they need to make sure that the Baxter Building meets the criteria of the lease, so they can go ahead and sign with the leasing company for, once again, reasons that aren't explained. And so, on his way over, Matt goes to the Baxter Building and finds out that Electro has broken in, and there's a fight there at the Baxter Building. So, so he converts himself into Daredevil, and tries to figure out what the story is. So,
yeah, their paths cross, and Daredevil is
in the Baxter Building. So it's
go ahead.
I was going to say it's this neat intersection of universes, right? A little bit Spider-Man, a little bit Fantastic Four, a little bit Daredevil, all Daredevil, but it makes I felt like it really made the story feel lived in.
Yeah, to be fair, it's not Fantastic Four. They totally wasted them in this episode.
No, I disagree.
It was like, hey everybody, here's our guest stars to remind you that they exist.
No, I disagree with that. I disagree with that because for two reasons. A, it's not a Fantastic Four story. It's meant to be just a nod to that this is an interconnected world. And so it's cool that they'd show up. It's cool that they, as opposed to just having some random people show up, it's actually, oh, hey, I recognize these characters. Secondly, this is a Daredevil story. And as opposed to him just fighting a villain in a nondescript location, you know from years of reading the Fantastic Four, and it actually gives you some stakes. This is Reed Richards' lab. If Electro gets his hands on these secrets, it's a big problem. It actually, without doing a whole lot of prep work, already gives you stakes. But the reason why the Fantastic Four can't be here is because this is a Daredevil story, and Daredevil is a lower rank hero. His battles are meant to be hard fought and earned through the usage of his super senses. If you throw the Fantastic Four in here, the fight just goes a completely different direction and is not going to be as interesting as and is tension filled. I'm like, Daredevil taking on Electro, power differential much, and that makes me more invested in seeing Daredevil win.
Yep.
And that was what was so jarring to me, was that we went from a Dick Tracy story to what is basically a Fantastic Four story, where we're launching rockets around the world and stuff, and I was like, okay, what kind of universe am I in here?
I would argue that it's not a Fantastic Four story. It's just in that universe. It's part of the continuum.
It was like all of a sudden they gave
all of these things happen simultaneously.
Apparently we need to all read more Dick Tracy, because Dick Tracy has space.
Oh, Dick Tracy gets crazy.
Yeah, they go into space. There's literally a moon maid, I think, character or something. So
he has all kinds of gadgets that should not even have been possible at the time.
No, I'm specifically talking about rocket ships. That's
no, I know. I'm just saying, Dick Tracy is a lot more out there than most people perceive him to be.
I would like to read more Dick Tracy, but still, even you get my point, though.
I do.
Themes from the previous issue versus the themes from this one.
So
I would believe this is a Dick Tracy story.
Let me defend that as well, okay? Because I see what you're saying, but this also is, I think, a good move, because if you just reading the first 4 issues, they kind of do some alternate. I'm actually going to defend the owl here for a second. They actually, by alternating their modes, they illustrate that Daredevil has a wide narrative range. He can fight gangsters, have me invested, and me go, this is cool. And then he could step a foot. I would say he kind of dips his toe in the more fantastical here. And so he visits the Fantastic Four's literally world, and he fights a villain there who's not a Fantastic Four villain. It's a Spider-Man villain technically, so there's a third layer of crossover. But he dips his toe into the more fantastical, and then in the following issue, it's back to gangsters again. And so that kind of tells the reader that we're going to be dipping our foot into both worlds. There will be stories that will be more gangstery, a little more Dick Tracy-esque, and then there will be stories where Daredevil will get to face off with more colorful and fantastical situations. I think that for readers, this is a fantastic move, because you don't just go, oh, it's just going to be one or the other.
It's fantastic.
By the way, I'm noticing what may be some of that Coletta work here. Have you noticed we're not seeing any red on Daredevil? Everything's been inked out in black.
Yeah, that was done somewhat in the other one too. You'd have the edges that would be red, along with the thing. But there's definitely, and the boots, there's a little bit of trace of red in the boots. But yeah, you're probably not wrong. There was some economy of time stuff going on there. So
it's hard for me to see what Coletta is doing unless I could see the pencils.
Yep.
And I'm assuming that
I go watch that video and you'll be able to see, because they're going to give you every example of like, here's what Kirby did and here's what Coletta did.
I think I might have seen some of that ages ago, but like what I'd be interested is to see these pencils. You know what I mean? So you really got to do, you got to do your digging to really see. You know, as opposed to just reading the book or just looking at the art as a whole composition, you have to go that extra mile and go, okay, what did Orlando's pencils look like before Coletta inked them? And, you know, and then before they were colored, you know what I mean? So that's a very specific moment in the process you need to see. Because like, as it
together.
Sure, I'm just saying that reading these pages, they read fine to me. I'm not seeing something that's like killing the art.
No, so but when I notice, like, wait a minute, he doesn't have any red on him, and then it dawns on me. Oh,
there's a little red. I mean, I guess you're saying that there's less, but
right. Like in the other ones, you knew where every part of that costume was red. It just had black in it. Here, you'd be, if you were reading this for the first time, you could be confused into thinking that his costume was red, as black and yellow.
There's still, again, on the page we're looking at, there's still red highlights. There's like on his on his belt, and I don't know.
Like, look at this picture. His boots are completely black, right?
Yeah, they are. Black, they are.
Right.
Okay.
But also, I'd like to say that this method of using his cane to get down the elevator shaft sideways without touching it, I did that. This took me out.
Oh really? Oh, I thought you were going to say that was cool.
Oh, I didn't believe this for a second. I kept trying to get through the idea in my head, and I'm like, no, that tight radius, spinning around that tight radius means you're going to be going faster and faster, and you're not going to be able to maintain that spin all the way down. You're falling anyway. It's not like so much energy to go around.
I'm torn on the cane because on one hand, like the modern Daredevil, I believe, doesn't have a hooked cane, right? He just has the modern day, blind cane. And on some thing is that it does make it look cooler, and of course, then they added like the shooting lines and stuff. But with the old cane, he can hook stuff, and that's been lost since then. So, but the the old cane just kind of looks generic. Oh, look, it's a cane.
I'm fine with it being a mixture of both. This is part of my issue with like, if you lean Daredevil into just being a ninja, and he's doesn't have the blind aspect to him. He's just a ninja who just does ninja things, and that's like.
And then he's kind of boring.
Yeah, then he becomes boring. He's just like a less cool version.
But don't you
Spider-Man.
find it odd visually to have this guy in a superhero suit, and then it's like, hey, look, here's my cane.
No, I don't, because it's just his version of what Batman has as a grappling hook.
Well, and in these two issues, the cane has been used so interestingly, right?
Conceptually, yes.
Yeah, visually, it doesn't bother me at all because it's of the way it's being used. So it's just part of the package,
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine with it.
My point being that it is cool what he can do because of the hook on the cane.
No, I agree. I'm totally down with it. I like it when it's I like the idea that he can either that he has the sort of it's segmented. So my preference is where it's segmented, where he can have the hook, or he can like fold it and then just throw it around like he does with the nunchaku, essentially.
Right. So one of the things I wanted to talk about here, of course, he uses his senses to track Electro through the city, and ends up defeating him through his wit, which was a lot of fun. But here's the thing: so Matt gets back, and the Thing shows up. And he's like, well, did you do the job I hired you to do? And they're like, oh, no, I'm just getting ready to head over there, because somebody wrecked our place. What's up with that? And he's like, well, if you're not done, we're going to find a better lawyer. And then he leaves. So this is the second time in a row where Matt Murdock, because of his daredeviling, is not getting paid.
Yeah, you can see the Stan Lee showing through here, right? He always has to have a problem between his superhero life and his personal life.
So, well, and it's kind of wild because like Foggy is also a lawyer, and his dad puts up the money to get the business started. So maybe they're not in rough straits yet, but it's sort of like, there's this ongoing theme um, in thing where okay, Matt's brilliant, he's a great attorney, but Foggy is a good attorney, not great, and so he needs Matt to come in clutch, and Matt's always fighting crime. And so Foggy's just like, oh man, my buddy Matt, he can't be here because he's blind and stuff. But I, I'm going to the soup kitchen because I'm about to get thrown out of my house.
Yeah, it's this tension of like, how long can he keep this up type situation.
It is weird because like Foggy ends up as the kind of he's Peter Parker, where it's like in Spider-Man it'd be like all this stuff just crushes his life, poor Peter Parker. Whereas with Matt so far, it's like every time he fails, it's just like, I don't care.
Because he's a man without fear. So, yeah, that's one of the one interesting things about these books. So let's go ahead. Final thoughts. Cartoonicus, this was an experiment to see if you would like Daredevil. Do you, in fact, like Daredevil?
Oh, my thoughts on early Daredevil, because obviously we're talking about early Daredevil.
Yes, we are.
Action-wise, yes. Character-wise, he's a bit of a Mary Sue. The guy has, even though when he's failing, his company, he really has no downsides. Because, like I said, even then he's just confident. He doesn't care. So it's like, okay, so you're kind of a literary genius and straight A student, and you're physically fit, and you've got superpowers, and you've got this like perfect moral code. Yeah, it's surprising, honestly, that Stan Lee wrote this. Stan Lee loved to throw things into his characters that would just jar them around and yank them around.
He gets put through the ringer eventually.
Right. So if I can get past that, it's like, okay, just as a conceptual superhero, yeah, you knew I would like it because he was a physical character. He's a martial artist, all that kind of stuff. He's got his super senses. But I was kind of a little dismayed from the very first issue. It was like, whoo, man, I could use some actual characteristics. His dad has way more of a story than he does. As for the overall, feel of the comic and stuff, I'm gonna have to read several more issues until I can get a feel for the overall art style and writing and everything. Because, like I said, for me, these two issues were night and day.
Yeah,
one I liked and one I did not.
We didn't read one of I think a really good one today, but I'll just briefly mention that. The owl story is interesting, and issue 4 is the first appearance of the Purple Man, which is a very important character for at least the MCU and especially the Netflix MCU because he is.
It's just important to New York and Marvel in general.
He is the crux. And I don't actually like this fact. He is the crux of Jessica Jones's narrative in a way that I do not like.
I thought that's how I knew that name.
Yeah, that's him. So, but like here, he's just an interesting character who again has because Daredevil being Daredevil, is able to have a very interesting dynamic with, and so the story is able to go in some very interesting directions because of who you're mixing together. So I do encourage, I do recommend the first appearance of Purple Man. I don't know if I can recommend Alias, but I do want to mention that. And next time, if we want to do more Daredevil, we might want to jump ahead a little bit and maybe read a little bit of Frank Miller's take when we start getting the more Catholic side.
Ooh, Miller.
So that's or I don't know. We could stick with I do like I said. We haven't gotten to Stiltman. I love me some classics. Silver Age Stiltman is cool because again with Daredevil you have a wonderful mix.
I agree.
Anyway, my thoughts are that I enjoyed this even more than I thought I would, or even on revisiting some aspects of Daredevil. So it shows what clever concept writing. If anything, I'd say this book showcases some of Stanley's talents more than some of his other books do. Even if he's falling into some of his formulas, which he does, he has them, he has his tropes. What he's able to very cleverly put together here with his team is remarkable, and I think it's noteworthy.
Well, while I did not appreciate any of, I practically ignored all the narration boxes. Did anyone notice that when I was reading anyway, I didn't feel like that was Stan Lee's classic style of writing? Did you?
Oh yeah, there's definitely, like, especially the early bit when it's like when he's basically just doing a bunch of marketing and he's like, hey, you bought this other book, you're gonna really love buying this one too.
Yeah, that was like one page though. I don't know. Usually when I read Stan Lee's narration boxes, I can hear his voice.
Maybe you need to read more Stanley. Have you considered that? Maybe you just have not read enough Stanley.
I would never say that I need to read more Stanley per se.
I would. And I am right now. I'm saying you need to read more Stanley.
No, I don't. I really don't.
Well, that's all I got. Reese, you're muted. You've been muted for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not a Stanley hater, but I'm not a lover.
I don't think I was saying anything important there, but I did just look ahead, and the first appearance of the red suit is a crossover with Namor.
Because Namor just can't stay out of these comics.
I think we should read every single random Namor crossover comic. I think that would be fun.
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of them.
There's a lot.
It would be a journey.
Constantly be subjected to this guy and his green Speedo.
And his little wings. Don't forget that. Early Daredevil, the metal. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I like it.
Do you prefer the early Daredevil? The later Daredevil? Is it all part of a piece to you? How do you think of that?
There's definitely stuff from like when Miller's writing him that I do like more. But there's also stuff from like here that I also like a lot more. There's like trade-offs to both of the areas. But I would say those were probably my two favorite times for Daredevil. So this is definitely up there.
Yeah. I think I can
take a shot every time Namor invades another book. That's good.
I think we die.
Next week, Namor meets the Addams family. Namor meets Nixon.
We need the Scooby-Doo movie where Namor meets Scooby-Doo.
Namor meets alcohol. He's drinking like a fish.
We need pickle Namor.
Goodness sakes. Well, I really enjoyed it. I am kicking myself that I did not get all 4 done, but it would have been really rushed to try to talk about all 4 of those stories tonight, I think. Because there's so many. Because the thing about it that one of the things I've really enjoyed, I talked about it, of course, is just the conception, the way they went from conception to implementation in talking about the Daredevil senses and how those work as a narrative device and and all of that kind of stuff. And that was so much fun to talk about. I really enjoyed that. So
big time, yeah.
We'll definitely, I think, have to do some more Daredevil, work that in somewhere. So we're not just a Batman.
I would definitely
channel.
like to get to Miller stuff eventually, because I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the stuff Miller has worked on, like when he does a take of something else, but I do like his Daredevil stuff like a lot. So that would be fun to go over.
Yeah. And I said, I would be interested in getting other people's opinions on Born Again. Maybe I'll have to take a look at the Elektra story and then Born Again and see how those things feel together. So that might be a fun comparison.
Yeah.
So anyhow, coming to a monitor duty near you in sometime in 2026. But that is it. Next week, guys, it is Valentine's Day week, and so we are doing a game called it's the dating game of superheroes. So we're gonna be talking about dating and marriage, and I haven't gotten all the rules figured out, but I will surprise the panel with those next week. So everybody, bring your favorite comic book couple, and we'll work that into the game for next week. Week after, I will be traveling in such a way that we will not be having a show. So
okay,
it's just there is no way to make that happen the week after. Mm-hmm. So we will be having a hiatus week in 2 weeks, on the 19th. So thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate it. Any thing else? Are there any announcements, projects people are working on, stuff we want to talk about before we call it a show?
No.
I don't know if I've said yet. Kitty's dad is finished.
Yes.
You can do a
congratulations. Round of applause.
Playthrough. Endless playthroughs.
Yeah. So I've not made it more past the first chapter because I'm bad. But I do encourage everybody to get out there. It is visually stunning, and super fun. So even though I didn't finish it, I do know that those things are true. So, but yes, that is it. So until next time, this is Reese on behalf of the panel, and for this week in Monitor Duty, we are signing off. Later.